Good day. This is Lisa Haydon with Central Kentucky TV, Community Focus on Washington County. Our guest today, our first guest, is Sister Elaine DeRosia. And I said that correctly.
You did.
Great. Welcome, Sister Elaine. I'm glad you could be here today.
Well, I'm glad to be here today.
Now, Sister Elaine, before we start to talk about your beautiful project here to my right, I would like to say a thank you for the beautiful pictures, the artwork on the wall here at the Opera House in Springfield in the conference room. Every couple of weeks when we do interviews in here, your beautiful artwork is displayed behind us. And a lot of people don't realize that. And this is your work that you painted, oil paint,
Yes.
of all the beautiful architecture in Springfield. I mean, it's gorgeous.
And it all began when, I said once to Mayor Ciccone, I'd like to start painting pictures of people's homes because I love to paint buildings. And so he says, well, he says, if you painted the downtown area, I bet people would want to buy those. So I began to paint them, and I showed them to him when I was half done. And we had decided that I'd do 12 of them, in case someday we do a calendar. We haven't talked about that yet. And so when I had them all done, he said, do you think I could buy them all for the city? And that's how the city purchased them. And they've been here ever since. And it just delights me to know that they are your background. And they are so for so many other meetings that are videotaped here.
Yeah.
I won't tell you too much about them all. There's a story that goes with each of them. But perhaps maybe just the two over in this corner. The top one is St. Dominic's Church. And that's a Catholic church that's been a really part of our Dominican heritage since we, well, not since we originally moved here, but for more than 100 years or so. And the one beneath it is the post office. And I deliberately painted that in winter because I wanted Cemetery Hill to show there. And if I did it in the summertime, it would be all trees. But I thought I'd do it in the winter so that in the background you could see the little tombstones and because I know that's a really important part of our heritage here. So yes, yeah. So I am really delighted
they
to have
are
those.
Absolutely beautiful, and you of course are an artist and have been painting for.
Well, it's really not my first career. I always tell this story that when I was 55, and that's 30 years ago, I was living in South Bend, Indiana. And I said, when I'm a little old lady with white hair living at the mother house, I'm going to want to paint, but I want to know how to paint. I knew I could draw, but I'd never touched a paintbrush. So I began to take classes at the South Bend Museum of Art School Tuesday nights, and with a good teacher. And I kept painting for 20 years of Tuesday nights. So by the time that I did move here, I felt pretty secure in being an artist, a painter. And so that's when I began to do this. As a matter of fact, now they call me the artist in residence at St. Catherine Mother House. Right, and I've done several projects. Yeah. Many are buildings. I do like to do buildings, but I'm reaching the time when I'm more eager to do some flowers and some other landscapes and so forth. But I really...
Well, you do such an excellent job. You know, they're so detailed. I mean, I just can't imagine how long, one of your paintings takes. I mean, you...
Well, I do it by layers, so it's hard to say for any one, but I do a simple layer first, and then I fill it in a little bit, and then I fill it in a little bit more, and then there's a final version. So it's all the same version, but I keep adding layers of paint to it, so that.
And so this is your latest creation here,
Yes.
which are all the mother houses of the Dominican order.
The Dominican Sisters of Peace.
The Dominican Sisters of Peace.
We are part of the big Dominican order, which, by the way, is celebrating its 800th anniversary at this time.
Right.
800 years ago, St. Dominic founded this, but our piece of it, well, perhaps I should give a little bit of history, because most people here know that we folks here have ancestry in Maryland in the late, not too long after the Revolutionary War. People from Maryland, a group of Catholics, decided that they would come down into pioneer territory. And when they came down in this area, they needed priests, and some Dominican priests from England came over to take care of them. And then after 15 years, Father Wilson got into the pulpit at St. Rose and said, if there are any of you young women who would like to start a Dominican sisterhood, whose ministry would be to teach the children of the pioneers, come and see me afterwards. And 9 women showed up. That was amazing. And those are the founders of us, who are the Kentucky branch of the Dominican Sisters. But then, and then of course, we grew and advanced.
That would have been Sister Catherine Spalding? No.
No, it's Mother Angela Sands. Catherine Spalding's for the Sisters of Charity.
Oh,
that's all right. We're all good friends. Right, but yes.
Sister,
Yeah, and Angela Sansbury and her sister, they had a home, a house and property down on Cartwright Creek that was in their name, very unusual in that time. So that was our first little house. But it had grown and developed as a school, and we had even sent sisters to teach in other schools. And by 1904, we had a beautiful place down there in the valley that was bigger and fancier than what we have our mother house here.
Is that right?
It had European architecture and so forth, and it was a boarding school for girls. Mm-hmm. And sadly, on the 4th of January in 1904, it burned to the ground, and many of the people in Springfield really reached out to help us, as well as others. So then when we did build, again, we built up on the highest knob in Washington County, they say, away from the mosquitoes and things like that in the valley. So this house is the house that we have now, that we've had since 1904, and half of it was St. Catherine Academy. Mm-hmm. And it was this half, and it was a boarding school, and it closed in 1970.
I was there.
You were there, yes.
I was in the last graduating class.
Oh, how about that? So you know that.
I hate to tell my age, too. It was 1971.
1971.
That was the last graduating class of the academy. Yeah.
So we used it for various things, but in around 2000, over a period of 2 years, we gutted the whole place and made it a good place for retirement. It's up to code for assisted living. So it's really, it's very good for us older folks who are there. And so that was the painting that I did as the first one in this series of 8. Because what are the others? Well, 7 years ago, after much prayer and discernment, we Kentucky Dominicans we dropped our identity, and so did 6 other Dominican congregations, and we became the Dominican Sisters of Peace. And we had people from Columbus, Ohio, and Akron, Ohio, and Oxford, Michigan, and one from Pennsylvania, one from Kansas, and 2 from New Orleans. So this new Dominican Sisters of Peace is a wonderful expression of diversity. And we're all moving around to other houses and getting to know one another. Now, we each had a big mother house like this to begin with. And then, actually, we still own all those properties. Some, we don't know, eventually we'll have to downsize. But we have them. And our new headquarters is in the middle one there in Columbus, Ohio. And it's much bigger than that. That's just the entrance to the sisters' residence. It's a lovely modern one built in 2000, and they had plenty of space in there for office space, so we made that our corporate headquarters are there in that one. And that house, by the way, they're a daughter community of us. We were only 6 years old remember, we were founded in 1822, and by 1828 we sent sisters to Ohio. Imagine how they went on a stagecoach. It was so long and so hard. When they got there, they decided to stay, and they formed a new congregation. They were in Somerset, but now they're in Columbus, Ohio. But that big gray area is the roof of their chapel. And that chapel is so beautiful. It was designed by one of our sisters, an artist from there. And the whole front of it, instead of being stained glass, is clear glass. And outside of it, can you see this? Let's bring it over. This is the scene that you see when you're praying in the chapel, because it's a whole group of birch trees and other flowers there. So I couldn't resist but paint that along the way. But that's what...
Oh, it's beautiful to have that kind of view from the chapel.
Right, and so why have pictures when you can have real-life beauty?
Yeah.
So that was that. Now, I could have brought all 8, which, by the way, some of you may well have seen this, because since the middle of January until the end of March, these 8 paintings were in the window of the opera house here. Yeah, and now we took them down to get ready for the art opportunity that's coming up. Well, I chose this picture as a sample of the third, to show that not all mother houses were constructed for that purpose. This one is on Market Street, the main street of Akron, Ohio. And you know, Akron was famous for being a rubber tire company. All the Goodrich and all the others were there. So one of the officers from, I believe it was Goodrich, built this lovely Italian villa for his family. And it was built in 1911 with a beautiful architect from Chicago. But by 1923, they were ready to sell it. And fortunately, I'm sure it was not at a high price, that the sisters were able to get it. Now, actually, that is the rear of it, but we call it the front, because the back is so fancy that it wasn't really appropriate for a convent. So, and in that, see that tree over at the edge? That symbolizes a whole yard full of, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 beautiful tall trees there. That's why I call it Our Lady of the Elms. So I chose that one to highlight, but we have others. I could give you a little glimpse of some. I brought one. This one is from Oxford, Michigan, which Oxford is about 1 hour's drive north of Detroit, and it's a modern one and just very lovely. I decided to go to visit each of these mother houses and spend some quality time so I'd get to know all of the new sisters of the congregation. And while I was there, I painted these. So all of these were done on location, with one exception. And the one in Kansas looks like this. It's more of a monastic. I'm not even showing them to you.
Yes, I see.
Yes, right. And many of you folks know Sister Diane or Sister Terry from St. Catherine's. That was their original mother house.
Oh, okay.
Right. And the sisters from...
now, you were in New Orleans, weren't you?
No.
At one point?
Well, I did to do some paintings, and I'll show you those. But I'm originally from Boston. I still park my car in Harvard Yard. You know? But I visited New Orleans. One of them in New Orleans is very monastic looking. and it was a college dormitory at one point, so that's why looks so kind of austere. It's right near the Loyola campus, right? And then the other one from New Orleans is very different because it's oh, I've got to look for it.
They're all so unique, aren't they? Every one.
Each one. The Eucharistic Missionaries of St. Dominic were a small community that did all missionary work with the poor mostly in New Orleans area, and they were very, they came to live with us after Katrina because it was. But anyway, they had sold their mother house a long while ago and had one house. They called it the Central House, with 7 bedrooms. Doesn't look it, but they have it. And it's right on a bayou, on like a river and it's so prayerful there. I loved being there to paint this. Right then.
Are they still at St. Catherine?
Yes, Sister Jeanne Moore is from there, and Sister Maria Emmanuel, and Sister Maria Teresa, and so forth. Those there.
Was this the place that got damaged during Katrina?
It was damaged to a certain extent, but almost everywhere else that they lived was really damaged. This happened to be up on a little bit of a bluff, and so the houses near it, across the street, got destroyed, but this one didn't, amazingly.
Wow.
It had, it took almost a year to get it telephoned back and all the other things. But the others who came up to live with us after Katrina, and so they've been with us for over 10 years, which is really great. So they gave the model of living together with other congregations, so it made it very easy. Yeah, I've shown that. Now, the other one is from Elkins Park, Illinois. Now look at that for a mother house, because it acted like their mother house, but they're a congregation of St. Catherine de Ricci, and they are retreat directors. And this was a big, wonderful retreat house, a mansion there where they held their retreats and also served as their central headquarters. And this is up for sale now if any of you want a good piece of property.
Wonder how many bedrooms that has.
Oh, many, many. many. I don't know how many, but I've made retreats there.
So wonder what they're selling it for.
Well, those are things you get in touch with me and I'll figure it out. I don't know now. So that was that
it's
project.
Beautiful.
And I was so happy to have that. Now, if you'd like to see these, they are now displayed at St. Catherine's. They're on the porch outside St. Catherine Hall. And there's an opportunity for you to come there because the Mid-Kentucky Chorus will be having its concert.
It's spring concert before this
Sunday
month.
the 24th and Sunday, May 1st. So if you happen to be there, be sure to. You'll probably go by it on the way in. They're in that big porch there.
I love that area, that porch.
Yes, that's.
So I was looking at those when I was there for my class reunion on Saturday.
Yes. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I didn't know you had.
Yeah, we went up to St. Catherine Hall just because that's where we used to go to Mass, and now it's the.
When we changed it back from a chapel into a general space, we needed more room, and it was very painful to give it up. But we did have our other original chapel, and so that's there. So that St. Catherine Hall is a perfect example of Gothic architecture, and the old one, which is our current one, is a good example of Romanesque architecture. They're both beautiful. Now, I want to tell you briefly that I did another project in between these two. I did 8 paintings of all of the academic buildings on the at St. Catherine College.
Oh.
Right. I thought I offered to do that for Mr. Houston. I said to put them in the new library.
I was going to say they are on. Yes.
They're in the some of them, not all of them, are in the President's Conference Room. So when you go regularly, you don't get to see them. But any event in that conference room, they are there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's a fabulous
It's
conference
beautiful.
room.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
so
yes.
state of the art.
And
I
the whole
mean,
library is a real joy.
It
yes,
is.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we took a tour of the library on Saturday.
Okay.
So
yes.
yeah.
That's
But I missed that where seeing your paintings in the. I guess I.
Well, maybe there was no one to point them out to you.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I think
still
some of the other
opportunity.
students were in there, and I was still in another room. So I didn't.
You were probably.
It was hard to see
chatting
everything.
with- yes.
I was chatting. But that's great to know that that's where they are. So
Yes.
people can get a look
Eventually,
at those.
I don't know. They may go to the central house there in Columbus, but because I did them as a real testimony to our heritage, because each one is important.
I guess I thought that the headquarters for the Dominican Sisters of Peace, I was thinking the headquarters was at St. Catherine, but it's in Ohio.
It's in Columbus. That's where we call the prioress, the top lady, and her council. We call it the leadership team. They live there, and many of the offices are there. However, the Kentucky is the place where we are incorporated still. So we have something like that too. Yeah.
That gets kind of complicated, doesn't it?
Well, it does. It does.
And there's offices in the mother house too. I know.
Yeah, there are some of the offices. I won't go into it; it's too complex. But we do have some of the central offices are located at St. Catherine too. Right, and people do love to come and visit us, particularly at this season of spring. We had about 40 sisters came last weekend for a meeting, and they really enjoyed seeing all the trees in
bloom. Yeah, they are.
In a moment of madness, I created a website for myself that has all the paintings I've done for the last 30 years, and it might be of interest to some. So I will hold it up and have people have a picture of it. But my website is paintings by eDerosia.com, and most people won't be able to spell Derosia, so I'm letting you see it there. It really means of the rose bushes, and it's a lovely French name. You see.
Oh.
Yes. And at one point in life, I was a biologist, so that makes me really like the name even more.
Well, so you were a biologist. Did you teach biology?
I did. I taught biology in high school for many years, and even I got to teach it on television. It was way back in the 1960s when biology had become much more expansive. The electron microscope had just been invented, and the whole field of biology just bloomed because now we understood everything that was in a cell and everything that it was doing, and it was marvelous. So they, in the Boston Archdiocese where I was, they had people teaching classes on television. So I got to teach the world of biochemistry on Boston Catholic Television Network.
Wow, how exciting!
Yeah.
I mean, I knew I was with a very talented artist, but I had no idea I was with such a celebrity.
Oh, it's not a celebrity. It's just a person that somehow, God gave me a lot of different talents, and I think that's the important thing in life, is to use the talents that God gave you, and that's what I've been trying to do. So you never know where I'm going to go.
No, tell him what you'll be doing next.
It might be on a stage.
That's right, because you were telling Gary before we started that you act as well.
Well,
and have been on.
I was in 3 of the plays at St. Catherine College, and I used to do some one-woman shows. I don't do that very much anymore, but so the acting is getting to be more in the past.
Well, I'll guarantee you there'll be a role that comes up you'll be in at some point.
Yeah.
But I do love your artwork. It is absolutely beautiful, and I'm glad that you're going to have some work displayed at the Robertson Building, and then, of course, at St. Catherine upstairs. So anyone that comes to the Mid-Kentucky Chorus's spring performance, April the
24th, I believe.
4th.
And then 4 and 7 or 11. So it's the
They
May 1st. Yeah.
And May
Those
1st.
two
And
Sunday after. Those are the two. Well, there may be some other ones, but those two. Those are the matinee ones that I'm talking about. Yes.
And then if someone wants to look at your work, they can get on your webpage at Paintings by DeRosia.com, and that's DESROSIERS. And now let me ask you this. Can anyone purchase any of your paintings?
Well, you know, I haven't set it up as where people can identify paintings, but I have promised myself that in the next few days I am going to add another page to my website that says pictures available for purchase. So I will do that probably between now and the time that this interview is aired, that there will be on my website a page that would show paintings that would be for sale. Most of my paintings have been by commission or have been for friends and relatives and seen occasions like that, like this. Yes, yeah.
Well, that's good to know too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you, Sister Elaine, for being on here today. I've certainly enjoyed it, and I'm glad to know more about your background and about your artwork, and I'm just happy that we have you here in our community.
Well, you know, despite my New England heritage, I've been associated with St. Catherine's for 67 years, and I haven't lived there all the time, but I've come back many, many, many times, and every time I come back, it's home. So I really am a Kentuckian, too.
Oh, that's great. Yes. Well, and too, as you said, the Dominicans will be celebrating 800 years of their the founding of the Dominicans, and so I understand that St. Catherine Mother House is having a ice cream social and some other
we haven't
activities.
Planned it yet. We haven't planned it yet, but it's in the hands of a steering committee now. But we do want to host a wonderful celebration inside and outside to have the whole community, Washington County and so forth and beyond, come and celebrate this 800th anniversary, which we have a whole year to celebrate it. But we'll in the middle of the summer when the weather's fine, we're going to have something for that. Yes.
I think there's a date I think there's a date that has been established. August. I can't recall off the top of my head what it is, but it's in. It's in August.
Is the Feast of St. Dominic, so it may be that time. You can tell I'm not on the committee. But
it might be August 8th. It's on a Sunday, and but you're right. It is right after. It's around that time. So that will be at St. Catherine.
You're reminding me to
we've got to spread the word.
Yes, to whet some appetites.
Right.
Right. Very good.
So thank you very much for being here today,
You're
Sister
welcome.
Elaine.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.